And tried to make the country music hit her theme song. The woman who wrote it, singer-songwriter Gretchen Peters, fought back. She'll tell us how later in the broadcast. But in addition now, going back to the voting for President Barack Obama, Americans also voted Tuesday night on 153 ballot measures around the country. In a major victory for the pro-choice movement, voters rejected abortion bans in South Dakota and Colorado. But despite high Democratic voter turnout, not all socially progressive issues fared as well as many had hoped. One of the biggest upsets was the opposition to gay marriage in California, Arizona, and Florida. Thousands took to the streets of Los Angeles Wednesday for an hours-long protest against the passage of Prop 8 that will amend the state constitution to specify only marriage between a man and a woman's valid. West Hollywood Mayor Jeffrey Prang and City Council member Abby Land addressed protesters from atop a police car.
When do we want equality? When do we want it now?
I'm Mayor Pro Tem Abby Land. This is the mayor of West Hollywood, and we have been part of, No on 8, and all of us coming together to express just the frustration we feel, the heartache we feel, but the determination that we feel that we are going to continue to fight, and none of us are going to give up. Not us, not all these people, until we win the rights for everyone to be in a committed marriage if that's what they want to be.
Gay, straight, black or white, marriage is a civil right.
Well, I first want to express my support for my colleague Abby Land, who's a heterosexual and married. I'm a gay man. I just got married about a week and a half ago, and I'll tell you,
Nicest guy.
there is nothing in the world that makes you more angry that you're the mayor of a city, you've got influence and authority, and they're telling me that I'm a second-class citizen. That is just not right, and it's not going to stand. But I know, as we all know, that history and justice are on our side, and we're going to win this battle.
People protesting the passage of Prop 8 in California. 3 lawsuits have already been filed to challenge its passage. Less than 6 months ago, the California State Supreme Court had declared a gay marriage ban from 2000 was unconstitutional. Prop 8 was approved with 52% of the vote, or 400,000 votes. We go now to Washington to Kristina Wilfore, Executive Director of the Ballot Initiative Strategy Center. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Kristina. Let's start right here with this ballot initiative in California. One of the protests in Los Angeles was in front of the Mormon Church. Talk about how this Prop 8 passed.
Well, this continues to be a difficult ballot measure. We've had well over 20 votes on this across the country since 2004, even before that time. And let me say this. This is a sad day for the 18,000 couples who were married in California. It's a sad day for this as a continued ballot measure fight. But this is not the last day. And if we really dig into some of the details here, I think we can put a different perspective on it. If you look at the vote in 2000 when this was on the ballot in California, you see an incredible movement more towards marriage equality. Now, not enough to keep this law in place, but let's not diminish that. It passed by 61%, I believe, originally in 2000. And look, we couldn't even call this vote until yesterday. That's how close it was. So there is progress on this issue, even if we don't see it in the actual ballot measure results.
And talk not only about California, but Arizona and Florida as well. Huge defeat for gay men and women around this country. Florida,
there was a sense, because of the domestic partnership benefits that are impacted, which is sad, which affects straight couples too, which is why the Blue Cross Blue Shield was even against the ballot measure, concerned about the impact on benefits, that's now in law. Arizona went back to the ballot. Politicians pushed this, even though the voters had voted on a wider version in 2006, and it was the only state to have defeated this. They were outspent tremendously. The Mormon money, in terms of individual members of the Mormon Church that got together on this fight, I think that's very questionable. You had at one point over half of the money coming into California. I believe you have about $3 million that came from members of the Mormon Church in Arizona. I think they have some questions to answer. Why is this the priority that they're organizing around, especially in light of so many other issues issues that are important to their membership, important to their religion. It's very, very curious, very questionable who they're aligning themselves with. Many people who are not only anti-gay but anti-Mormon that are now a part of their, I guess, growing coalition. But I don't think people should be too taken aback. This is a long-term struggle. Social movements don't happen over time. If you look even just back in California, the legislature has voted twice for marriage rights. You have more people who are more accepting of marriage equality in this country. You have young voters who are engaged and enthused around this issue. We will win this in the long term. It won't likely be through the mechanism of ballot measures.
Also in California, Kristina Wilfore, Prop 5, which was easing punishments for drug offenders, defeated.
You know, there's some issues around criminal justice, and I think if you look at some results in some other states, in Massachusetts, it's a decriminalization measure. It's making, you know, a small amount of marijuana a non-punishable crime. And I think that what we're seeing is a shift in other parts. In Michigan, there's also medicinal marijuana. We're starting slowly but surely to look at these issues from a health perspective, from a budget perspective. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in California, but I think that we're trending the other way in some of these other states. But I do want to, I guess partly because we led off with marriage, and partly because you get sort of the headlines of the news coverage of ballot measures that this is overall. Let me be very clear. After having been engaged with ballot measures for well over 7 years, exclusively studying, looking, involved in campaigns, this was not a mixed bag year. This was a huge year for progressive victories. Many right-wing measures outside of California were shut down in other states, and I don't want to diminish the importance of that. This is a change election, and we even saw that through these ballot measure results.
Outside the defeat of the abortion ban, which I'm going to go to in a minute, talk about some of those progressive victories. The first time we have ever beaten affirmative action ban, a rollback of equal opportunity programs, happened in Colorado. The votes were called last night. It was a close election. Ward Connolly is going to have a lot of explaining to do to his set of wealthy extremist donors. He started in 2008 with the notion of doing 11 states to ban equal opportunity. He got funding for 5. He failed to qualify through fraudulent signature gathering. Many problems in Missouri, Arizona, and other states where he attempted to get this on the ballot, Oklahoma. And then he ended up with 2 states, Colorado and Nebraska. And so the only state that he actually passed this in, the reddest of red states, by a pretty narrow margin, was Nebraska. And in Colorado, he was beaten back. And what we uncovered in this last year of really focusing on him and what is this all about, he has personally pocketed from his 2 nonprofit organizations in the tune of $7.6 million that he has put, in his own pocket to do these ballot measures. He actually has taken an affirmative action contract from the state of California by proving that he was a minority-owned business in 1997 before he started this agenda. He's mostly funded by extremists and many wealthy white developers who just don't want to compete with women and minority-owned contracting. So in reality, I think we've seen this election cycle, the one color Ward Connolly cares about is green, and voters are responding. This agenda is not appropriate. This is not about Barack Obama or Sarah Palin or Hillary Clinton being able to run for public office. This is about the real programs that are needed to create a level playing field, and we need these programs. I'm a personal beneficiary. Most white women who were able to go to college and move professionally have in some ways benefited from affirmative action. So I think this is a historic victory that we shouldn't diminish, even if there's some difficult fights, hard fought, that lost in other states. We're also joined by Sarah Stoesz, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood in South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota. Sarah Stoesz, what happened in South Dakota, an anti-choice state? You defeated an abortion ban.
We defeated an abortion ban this time in 2008 by 11 points, but I'd like to also point out that in 2006 we defeated a similar ban, much more harsh, by 1 point more, by 12 points. But in in the case of 2006, we were actually the initiators of this ballot initiative. And so one thing I think we should consider, just from the progressive standpoint, is whether we ought to begin thinking about ballot initiatives as a progressive strategy, not just reacting to what the right wing brings to us and always being on the defensive, but considering bringing forth these things proactively. That's what we did in 2006, and we won. Now we reacted in 2008, and we again...
In 2006, it was what?
It was a complete and total ban on abortion in 2006 that the legislature passed, the governor signed, and as a result of that, we formed a coalition, the South Dakota Campaign for Healthy Families, which was a very broad-based coalition in South Dakota, which really